Hello, everybody. Good evening. Wherever you are in Delhi, NCR, North India, Chandigarh, Punjab, it's everywhere. COVID, COVID, COVID all around. But of course, it's a golden opportunity because of the digital era. We all connected each and every moment. Today's session, why interior design, be design at OP Jindal Global University, is brought to you by OP Jindal University, Jindal School of Art and Architecture, in association with the Design Circle International ASCAS. The esteemed guest that we have today is Dr. Jaideep Chatterjee, who's the Vice Dean of Jindal School of Art and Architecture, as well as he's the Director for Undergraduate Programs, with two PhDs in urban design and history of architecture. Joydeep is in the industry since last 18 years and above, teaching in University of Cincinnati and many more international projects, along with many other universities in India. We have Professor Zai Malpani, who is also the course coordinator for B Design at OP Jindal University, and the Deputy Director for Jindal Social Studies. I'm right. So you can correct me. Then we have Mr. Sumit Saurabh, who's the CEO and the Director for Design Circle International. So let's begin. I hand over to Sumit sir.
Oh, hi everyone. So very nice to see you all in the situation of COVID. It's very tough to see other people than the only people we are living with. So now we at Design Circle, we have two centers in Delhi and Noida. So these students are mainly interested for the courses like fashion, communication, interiors, and product, and they're quite keen to join the courses like interior, product design, and interior and architecture. So they are also very keen to know about what is the difference between interior design, interior styling, and few colleges are offering interior and architecture. So how OP Jindal, what they are offering, and how it is quite different from the other courses, and they're also very keen to know about the entrance examination, the course pattern, the faculties, the international exposure. So I think it's a really great opportunity for them to understand what's going to happen. So I hand over again to you, and and I have quite a few questions, so I'll keep on asking you when the time will come.
All right, thank you. Hi everyone. Let me kind of reintroduce myself. Azad got something a little wrong about me. I'm Joydeep. Got the bit right about me being the Vice Dean of the school and the Director of Undergraduate Programs. But my first PhD is in architecture, and my second PhD is in anthropology, actually. Right. So I am an architect, a historian, and an anthropologist. And for a lot of my life a lot of my training and teaching experience has been in the United States of America. I was teaching at Cornell, then I was teaching at Cincinnati for a while, moved back to India, and sort of started OP Jindal, the School of Architecture, which is called the Jindal School of Art and Architecture at the OP Jindal University. So welcome to this open house webinar kind of thing, and thank you all for coming here. Thank you all for making the time. Right. So what I want to do very quickly is give all of you a bit of an overview of the school, the ideas with which we started, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Professor Malpani, who is, as Azad mentioned, the course coordinator for the BDES program, as well as the Deputy Director of the Jindal Center for Social Design. Right. Okay. So here goes. Here's the first slide, right? So we started, and what you see in front of you is actually a view of our premises and looking onwards to the new hostel building that's getting built right next to our premises, right? I don't know how many of you know this, but Jindal Global University is about 100 acres in a whole, and it's a kind of a self-contained, almost like a township, right? So we've got, starting from a food court to swimming pools and all kinds of things, even a barber shop, not that I need it, but, all of that completely inside, right? It's a fully residential university. And what you're seeing, the premises for the JSAA so the university extends across a few places, and so this is our little area of the university, which we are fancily trying to start calling the design quad, right? So what you're seeing here is actually the main corridor in front of the building and overlooking a new hostel block that is getting built. So, all right, so we started in 2018. And as the slide says, our aim was to really become one of the foremost centers of learning, which will produce what I call a global paradigmatic shift in the making and discourse about the built environment, right? So it's just not a simple school of either architecture or interiors. The idea is that we are ultimately going to become, and we are well on our way to become, a school which, if you want to work with the built environment, whether it's the interior environment, whether it's the exterior environment, whether it's the infrastructural environment, whether it's the community and regional environments, all of it which goes on to make the built environment, this is the place for you to be, right? So what is it, what I'm going to present to you next are actually 4 ideas we kept in mind while starting the school, right? So the first idea, and I'm going to read this out to you, is fostering an environment wherein knowledge is not seen as a finite domain, right? A pre-given domain, but rather a terrain which is as much in the making as the very object it seeks to investigate, contest, represent, and reproduce. That's a lot of fancy words, but let me tell you what it really means. What it means is that in our school, we don't believe knowledge is like a body, a corpus. Knowledge is always in the making, and knowledge comes to be by people working together. And every project actually produces new knowledge, right? So knowledge is in the making. That's what you've got to remember, all right? That's number 1. Number 2, we were very keen to really get out of the one-size-fits scheme that has been in India all the way, right? So one of the things that, when we, and Zai will talk more about this, but when we got together our faculty, which is basically from all over the world, and some from, and mostly from the top sort of 50 universities in the world, all of us, we were very keen on one thing, that we are not going to give students a one-size-fits-all solution. Why is that? Well, the first reason for that is all of you, all of us, everyone in the world has different ways in which they learn things. They have a different pace at which they learn. They have a different style in which they learn. So, but why do we make everybody do the same thing all at once? So one of the things that we designed, and the coursework, the way it is designed, is very, very unique. You, as the student, actually get to design your own courses and your own timetables and what kind of courses you take first. After the foundation year, which is kind of common, your second, your third, and your 4th year, right? And the B-Design is a 4-year program. You kind of decide your path. You kind of decide that what is the kind of courses I want to take first? What interests me? I'm going to do those first, and I'm going to try out things, right? So you are actually as much a maker of your own trajectories of learning as we are, right? All right, number 3. The other thing we wanted to get out of was this idea that knowledge, right, is divided between theory and practice, right? Or that, it's either good business or it's good design, right? Or it's either thinking, or you're a thinking person, or you're a doing person, right? Or you're an expert, or you're somebody who doesn't have knowledge, right? That's not how really knowledge and learning and making happens. The idea is to realize that making happens through multiple people coming together, multiple ideas coming together, and not in a linear way, right? Not in a way. So the way you learn, the way you make is often, and especially as designers, You take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step to the side, 1 step backwards, sideways, anyway. And the idea is for all of us to be able to do that, right? All right. The last point that I want to make is really a very critical point and a very critical idea to what we believe. This being the idea that learning and producing, all right, knowledge through faculty and students collaborating as peers and active agents. Zai will talk more about this too, but what you realize, should you come to our school, is that all of our studios, our classrooms, are not geared in a way in which we are this repository of knowledge and we give you knowledge. No. All of you actually come with many, many things, and knowledge is a two-way process. We learn from you as much as you learn from us. That's number one, right? Number two is that because we work with what I call very hands-on kind of projects and everything is really in the field, our classes are structured as if your faculties are just senior designers and you are apprentice designers, right? And that happens from day one, right? So these are kind of the overall ideas that I wanted to sort of place. These are sort of what I would call the philosophical ideals which govern our school. Now, with that said, what I'm going to do is hand over the presentation to Professor Malpani and ask her to kind of take us through the details of everything that happens in the first year, which is the foundation year, and then give you the details of the BDES program itself, what's there, all right? So over to Professor Malpani.
Thank you, Joydeep. I'm just waiting to share my screen. There we go. So firstly, let me actually begin by thanking all of you for being here this evening. I know many of you are probably even suffering screen fatigue at this point, but thank you for being here. And when I was asked to give this or be part of this sort of seminar or talk, I was given the prompt that why should somebody study do the BDES program at the Jindal School of Art and Architecture? And I was like, I'm going to turn this around on you. I think what's more interesting is if I ask you a bunch of questions about what do you expect out of your education, right? How do you imagine yourself as a professional? So what I'm going to ask all of you who've tuned in here today, who are listening to us, who are watching us, is if you're very good at mental math, I'm going to be asking 8 questions as I go through my presentation. Try to answer them in the yes or no. You can keep a check in your head. If you want to keep a pen and paper near you, do so. And once I'm done with my presentation, I'd love to know how many of you got yeses, and you can possibly leave them in the chat screen that is available to you. So let's begin, right? How do you imagine yourself as a professional? This is not my first question though. Oops, sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble with my screen. Okay, so my first question is, sorry, I'm having a little bit of screen trouble. Do you want to be somebody who learns from what life has to offer? What do I mean by this? This is my first question. Let me explain it a little bit more. Are you somebody who realizes that there is already so much happening in the world around you? When you're thinking about interiors, are you really able to separate interiors from exteriors? Are you really able to separate from all the kind of practices that we are a part of, the way life moves around us? Or are you somebody who would like to learn from the spaces around you, who would like to embed themselves to really be a very integral part of the design process? Do you want to be somebody who is actually a part of who's a team member on projects that get realized? So are you going to be somebody who learns to design on paper, and then are you going to graduate and say, okay, now how do I actually realize a project? How do I execute this? How do I get it up from the ground? Or do you want to be somebody who graduates and is like, yeah, I can handle a project. I will collaborate with others, but I can handle a project. So if you look at this is some work from our first year when we were working with a non-profit organization at Kalkaji. They had a very limited budget and they had a bunch of problems. One of their problems was actually the interior design of a room that they were using as a library, as a computer room, as a storage room, all for kids who were coming from economically marginalized backgrounds, they were there to study, they were there to learn. And our students engaged in a very hands-on manner with the client. They provided solutions. They were working towards really taking their furniture, remaking it. So it was getting involved from the very get-go. Sorry, I have to shift this because I have some screen issues. Okay. Do you want to be someone who actually knows how to make things with your own hands? Now, this is something that we often talk about, but nobody really approaches this. Can you really learn design if you're at a remove from it? If you only know about it in the form of books or things that you're seeing on the web or, somewhere else around you? Or do you want to be somebody who's like, okay, if I need to make a cabinet, I need to know how that cabinet actually gets crafted. I need to know that I have the skills to be able to not just collaborate with maybe the craftsperson or the carpenter or whoever on site, but even put it together myself so I can meet my challenges. This is what, when we start talking about, okay, learn how to make with your hand, but at the same time, think quickly. There are things that are constantly evolving. Our life, our objects, so they're constantly in a moment of evolution. But if you can't engage with them in a hands-on manner, then you're always going to be somewhere at a bit of a disadvantage. Do you really want to be at a disadvantage? Or do you want to be somebody who can think quickly and execute things? So I'm going to actually show you a little video, because when we start thinking about, okay, if you're making with your hands, how do you understand material assemblies? Can you understand something, don't take it apart? So this is a project some of our first years did, where they understood how a chair comes together by first deconstructing the chair. They had some fun alongside. Sorry. Okay, so that was them taking a chair apart. If you see the image below, you can clearly see our vice dean on site, which is right behind our school building, working with the students, this time not to deconstruct, but construct a set of benches. I'm going to switch over to a little video of the students working on this, and you realize that even though they're getting their hands dirty, literally and metaphorically, they're getting very engaged in putting things together, they're still having fun while they do this. I want it that way. All right. Okay. My next question, do you want to be somebody who knows materials? Now, one of the biggest challenges I've seen that very often designers face is that, again, like I mentioned earlier, when they're training to be designers, they have an idea of materials as just images. right? They don't know how to work with them. They don't know how much materials cost. They don't know how materials come together. So if you're going to be a successful designer, any practice that you get into, you realize that you need to know how to source, you need to know how to put together, you need to work within a budget. And these are some of the ideas that we're constantly working with in school, because we tend to work with projects. We are not talking about projects which are just in terms of, okay, how are you thinking about them in your head? These are projects where you'll have a client. These are projects where you'll be collaborating with other, not just team members who are from your school, but team members who might be craftspeople, masons, right? So do you want to be somebody who knows materials? We send our students out on market surveys, and this is not just to collect information, but to actually source. In this particular project, which I referenced earlier to, they had a budget which was non-existent. So they had to make sure that they went into places that they could get materials really, really cheap. How would they then construct using these materials? Okay, then do you want to be somebody who understands objects and people have powerful interconnected lives? People, we've all gotten used to the fact that if you're a designer, especially somebody who's dealing with interiors, of course the interior is something that responds to a person. But what people and what educators at times, what people who are studying at times forget, that as human beings, we have objects around us, objects that have memories around us, right? And we constantly need to work with these. We need to figure out how to place them. We need to figure out how to incorporate them. We need to figure out how to curate them. So here are some things that we thought about objects. Do objects remain static? No. Do designs remain static? No. We're constantly evolving them. We are constantly changing them. Think about how, I mean, many of you may, even in the last 2 months that you've been home, have you redecorated your own rooms? Have you shifted where your table was to maybe another location? Have you added cushions to a place that you sit by the window? They're all forms of design, right? So we are always designing, but we are always also improvising on those designs. I'm going to give you an example again from a project that happened at school. We had the studio faculty had a box that they shared with the students, but all of the students took upon themselves to reconstruct a variety of boxes. Now, these were not boxes that were merely meant to sit somewhere as like, hey, first semester work, please, darling parent, hold on to it. These were boxes which became objects that they grew very attached to, that they put on their own drafting tables or their own workspaces within studio. They figured out how objects assemble together, how to cut the wood in the, we have an excellent workshop facility with some state-of-the-art technology. They figured out how to cut wood, how to put it together, how to hammer things together, which screws to use, which nails to use. Does glue work? Does Fevicol work? How do you attach a hinge? So it was a very hands-on experience, but at the same time, they understood almost the kind of life world of the box itself. Okay, my next question. Do you want to be someone who's interdisciplinary and not pigeonholed? Now, this is a very important thing. When you think about it, you can be trained as a designer, but when you start practicing as a designer, you suddenly come to realize there are all these forms of knowledge systems that coexist alongside you. You can't have a blinkered vision. You can't be just in a narrow little space of your own. You have to start extending your network out into many other disciplines. We are very, very committed to this idea. So part of this Joydeep mentioned, some part that we bring that we have for you to be able to explore this idea is by being able to design your own curriculum. What do we mean by that? And I will, of course, get to this again a little later in the presentation. But what are the kind of subjects that you want to choose alongside interiors? What is your focus even within interiors? How do you learn from various faculty members? Joydeep himself mentioned he's trained as an anthropologist. But you at Jindals, you're not just part of a design school, you're part of a much larger university as well, right? So you have access to people who are studying law, who are teaching law. You have access to people who are teaching public affairs, international policy. There are all kinds of various permutations and combinations possible. But I have to mention here, you have to be a motivated individual. You have to be somebody who's very interested in your own learning. You have to be somebody who's interested in making something out of yourself instead of just receiving instructions, because you've already done that all your life. You received instructions. Why not chart your own course for a change? Okay, next question. Do you want to be someone who can ask interesting questions and have a thoughtful practice? Again, this is a little bit of an extension of the last part that I was discussing. How do you become a thoughtful person? Do you read books? Yes, sometimes you do. Do you work with your hands? At other times you do. Do you have access to various knowledge systems? That becomes very, very critical for a person to grow. So let me give you an example. Just within JSA, these are some of the seminars that got offered over the last year. You have something called the Sex of Design, right? And coincidentally, I happen to teach it. We talk about gender in space. We talk about sexuality. We talk about how the interior environment, but not just the interior, because the interior, this demarcation between the interior and exterior at times can also become problematic, right? Where does the interior begin and where does the exterior begin is actually a question that shifts all the time. But how does gender play into that? You have a class like Society and Culture, which Joydeep talks about, which looks at how people have understood cultural practices. What are the larger ideologies that have shaped the world? You have Modern South Asia, sorry, which brings up various kinds of questions about histories. You have the land question, which talks about, hey, everything we do exists on a piece of land. What is the value of land? And not just value in terms of economic value, but the cultural value, the social value, and so on and so forth, right? You have writing seminars, you have sustainability studies, you have seminars that deal with the question of space and place, which therefore deals with the questions of associations, memories. You look at objects, codes, and equipment. You look at site planning and management. So a wide variety. But all of this is bolstered even more so by the fact that we have minors. Now, I don't think I would be wrong in saying we are one of the only designs. I think we are the only design school, because unless somebody has ever since we've started decided also to do this, and we don't know of them, no other design school is offering you minors, which means that while your major remains interior design, you have the possibility to pick up a minor in any one of these fields, right? You could be somebody who's very interested in writing. Maybe you're somebody who's like, okay, I want to understand interior design, but my dream job really is to write for architectural design or architecture and interiors, right? Perhaps you want to go pick up a minor from the School of Journalism and Communication. What the minors also allow you to do is when you apply for your master's, you can apply for a full-fledged master's in communication because you've already done the minor, right? Or you can, of course, when you start practicing and working, use this to really jump frog off into what you want to do. So the minors become one of the most interesting features of studying at JSA. Not that the rest aren't, because I think those are pretty interesting as well. My last question to you, do you want to be somebody who's socially responsible, right? A lot of what we see about interiors nowadays has become about the glitz and the glamour of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's actually part of how we practice. All of us, whether it's you at your sort of at this young age that you are, or if it's even somebody like me who's practiced for several years, we are surrounded by a whole bunch of images. But at the same time, is there a way in which we can be more sensitive in how we engage with people around us? Are our interiors only meant to be about profit? Very often, yes, there's nothing wrong with profit. The economics of any practice is an incredibly important aspect of it. I don't think any of us believe that you should be an artist who lives in penury, who's poor, right? You need to be, for you to be successful and for you to give back to society at large, you also need some success on your side. But can you do so being socially responsible? We train our students to do that as well. So you saw that we often work with nonprofit organizations, but apart from that, we also have students who've gone out for work study trips, right? This was at a small village, a hamlet in Himachal Pradesh called Garli, which is it's a heritage village actually. It's grown around this water body, which is very important to the village. It's both what brings tourism in, but also the village itself has a very deep connection to this water body for practical purposes as well as sort of spiritual purposes. So our students got involved. They started designing around this body in terms of how could tourism to the, they were working with the local population to figure out how could tourism become both be sustainable and be ethical. Okay. This is another thing our students are currently engaged on. They're working with a puppet studio, which works again with a lot of economically marginalized kids to design their spaces, to see how students work with the interiors. It's also run by a very famous puppeteer. So sort of becoming the bridge between, a kind of design bridge between students, between the clients, and trying to understand how do you work with the community. Okay, so those were the 8 questions I had to ask you. I'm going to, at this point, you could always write in, or you could wait till the end of my presentation. I still have a little bit more to say. But how many of those did you answer with a yes to? Right? If you had even 6 out of 8 as yeses, I think you should really think about coming to JSA, because we need people like you. Right? So let me talk about the Bachelor of Design program, then interior design at the Jindal School of Art and Architecture. One of our key philosophies here in this program is that we really want to understand inhabitation. Now, when I say inhabitation, this idea of dwelling in a place, creating habits around it, we are not merely just talking about homes and houses, though those become very, very important spaces of study to us. But at the same time, you might be inhabiting your workplace. All of you have, at least so far up in your life for the last 12 years, inhabited your schools. Right? And think about how very often for many schools, the environments are very standardized. You create memories and associations around them. When you graduate from school, you will remember your classroom, not just for the way it was put together, but all the people that came in together, how they had different practices, how they had different ideas of being in that space, how people moved through your school. Right? All of these will be memories you carry forward with you. Should those not inform design? Should those not inform how you provide for others? These are some of our key philosophies that guide the interior design program. I'm going to switch now to talk a little bit about the course structure, right? So this is of course a 4-year program. Your first year is common across all the disciplines, whether it's interior, whether it's the BA in built environment, or it's architecture. So that's the foundation year. You start with 2 studios, one that deals with materials, one that deals with questions of representation. You have a variety of seminars, whether they're about, like I mentioned, modern South Asia, space and place, society and culture, built environment. And you have something called the Foundation Atelier, which is your very first foray into working on a live project, working with an actual client, working to make something that you can deliver. So you will go from envisaging design all the way to making sure you do all the kind of drawings that are needed for site, and then go on to construct it. Whether you do it with your own hands, or you have to also collaborate and bring in other craftspeople, masons, contractors onto the job, but you learn right from the get-go how to work collaboratively and how to get projects executed. After which, up until year 4, you have a bunch of what are called the pathway ateliers. Now, while each atelier deals with a different theme, what's interesting about these is, for example, if you graduated out of foundation year, you come into the first pathway atelier. After, you could take that, or you could take an atelier which is currently being offered in year 4. Now, what would happen there? Not only would you be learning at your own level, you might have somebody who's a 4th-year student who's also in that atelier. So you're learning with your instructors. Instructors are learning from you, but you're also learning with your peer group, not just the one you joined with, but also people who are at various levels and stages of their own path through the curriculum. How does this help you? It actually mimics the structure of being in an office. When you join an office, you're usually, even after you've graduated, you're kind of at the level of an intern. But when you get onto a team, even as an intern, you'll be somebody who's an intern. There'll be somebody who has 2 years of seniority on you. There will be a studio master or somebody who's a team leader. We get everybody together to learn and work together. So that's how you have, from year 2 till about year 4, 5 pathway ateliers. In year 4, of course, your final studio is your capstone studio, which is where you're doing a kind of a thesis project, which is self-led. You could, depending on how you want to design it, you're the one who designs it. All of this is, of course, bolstered by some pathway seminars, which are particular to your field of study. You have, and then there is space for your minor concentration. So that if you want to be somebody like, I'm very interested in interiors, but I'm also very interested in the legal aspect of interiors. And trust me, there is one. You could go ahead and pick up a minor from the law school. You could be somebody who's saying, okay, I learned about, I took that sex or design class and I'm very, very interested in the question of gender. You could follow that up by going into the liberal arts school and picking up more classes on gender studies, on women and feminism studies, right? So it's really a very, in that sense, a revolutionary program, because it gives you so much more flexibility to do what you want to do instead of us telling you what you should be, right? We actually at JSA don't believe that you come in as an empty box we have to fill with things. We believe you're already first of all, we don't think of you as a box. Even though we are very, very appreciative of objects, we don't think of you as a box. But you're somebody who already has 18 years of life under your belt. There are things you've learned, there will be things you will have to unlearn, but at the same time, you're somebody who comes with ideas, you're somebody who comes with leanings, you're somebody who comes with your own thoughts and practices. We want to make sure that those that you want to be come to the fore and shine for you, so that you really are involved in your program, that you're enthusiastic about it at all levels, that it's not us motivating you as much as you already feel very motivated by your own self. And of course, we are there to back you up on the motivation. If should, and that's a big if, it ever flags. Okay, so that's the course structure. We, of course, one of the greatest benefits we have just within JSA to begin with is that we have faculties from all over. There are people who have, when we are talking about being a global university, we are delivering on being a global university. There are people who are dealing with conservation, there are people who are dealing with technologies, there are people who are dealing with services, there are people who are doing very, very well in their own fields, right? So it's a wide berth, and all of them coming together to really put you very much in touch with the question of interiors from 50 different perspectives. The idea is we want your mind to expand, but we want you to be in charge of how it expands. To further bolster this, we also pretty much on a weekly basis have international and national scholars come in. We have practitioners come in and talk about different kind of practices that they're engaged in, different kind of areas of investigation that they're engaged in, whether they're doing research, whether they're building something, whether they're designing something. How do all of these come together? And we want you not to be in a position, we want all of our sessions with people who come in from outside are not where they talk down to you. We don't necessarily encourage you to be in awe of them as much as to be able to talk to them, right? To be able to ask them questions. And I have to say, I honestly believe, as do all of my colleagues, there is no such thing as a dumb question. Every question has importance. But that's us. Why don't we hear a little bit from our students instead? So this is Ronak, who is talking about how he's in the second year, and now because we've only been around for, this is the second year of our studies. Ronak is talking about how he was initially a little skeptical about this timetabling system, but now he's so into it. He realizes that he's loved politics, he's loved history, he's loved global studies, but having to take sciences in the 11th and 12th completely put those interests on the side. Finally, he can look up his own interests, and he can use his interests, more importantly, to inform what he thinks about design. So it's not like he's studying politics on one side and design is a whole other thing, but he brings politics to bear on design and design to bear on politics. There's Astha, who similarly started seeing interconnections in everything. She's suddenly realizing that the world is not these discrete little units, right? And we've been taught for 18 years, our first 18 years of life, thanks to our schooling system in India, that everything is discrete little units. So there's physics, there's biology, there's history, there's math, and math has nothing to do with biology, which is not true. All of these disciplines have at some point or the other come from the same kind of bedrock, and they continue to be informed by each other. So using them and seeing them as little silos actually is the worst thing you can do for knowledge. We are also very interested in what happens after you graduate. So I would really encourage many of you to come in. We are having this lovely little podcast on the 13th of May, which talks about, okay, so you're learning how to be a designer, or you've just graduated as a designer. What do you need after? What happens after you graduate? How do you get in there, and how do you start doing what you want to do? So we start talking about networks, and honestly, nobody really talks about networks, except for we all exist within one. And for us to survive, for us to do well personally or professionally, we need networks. So one of the things at JSA is also that we never shy away from an uncomfortable conversation. We don't think there's any such thing as an uncomfortable conversation. Especially if you're studying interiors, you need to get to know people really, really well. Not, whether they're your clients, you need to be able to understand how do they live, whether they're people you're working with, you need to be able to understand how do they work. This network is what we exist in, and we are therefore we're starting with having a conversation around that. And as always, there's something or the other that's constantly happening at JSA. We keep life, we are on a campus which is in Sonipat. It's a township. It's a community that we have developed for ourselves. And we're always up to something or the other, whether it's inside the studio or it's outside the studio. If you'd like to check us out, see some of the things that we've been doing, please go look at our Instagram handle. Please go look at our Facebook. They're constantly being updated. The Instagram handle is student run, and I think they're incredibly proud of the work they do. But don't take my word for it. You should go have a look yourself. So that's about it from me for today. I think I'm going to open up this discussion to everybody else. If you guys would like to step in.
Hello,
if you have
thank
any
you,
questions.
Zai.
Thank you.
We're going to open the questions now. Before just giving the brief information about what the admission process is at Jindal School of Art and Architecture.
Okay.
What the fee is. So you should have at least 60% marks in class 12. Of course, we know that you're appearing. The board exams are going to be scheduled between 1st July to 15th July. That's the latest news that we can give it to you. Along with the 60% marks, we have our own test called Jindal Scholastic Aptitude Test, where you need to score at least 50% marks. This test is conducted by Pearson VUE. If you have SAT 1100, of course, you're welcome. We check your portfolio. We do take your interview, personal interview. But if you don't have a SAT score, you can submit your NIFT score. You can submit your NID score. UC Part A. You should have total 50 marks. You are most welcome to appear for a personal interview and portfolio round at Jindal School of Art and Architecture. For a BA and Built Environment Studies, these are the 3 programs that Jindal School of Art and Architecture has as on date. You should have 60% marks in class 12. With any of these scores, SAT, JE2 marks, you should have at least 165 marks in your JE2 to get enrollment, to be honest. The application and the admission will be processed after your personal interview, whether it's B Design, whether it's BA or BArch. So for the interior design, the fee structure, that's academic fee at Jindal is 3 lakh per year. Then you have a hostel fee, which is a mandatory thing because it's 100% boarding university. So you need to pay 2.4 lakh as a hostel fee. The total comes around 5.4 lakh per year. For BA Honors Built Environment Studies, the fee is 3.5 lakh. Hostel is again the same. The total comes 5.9 lakh. Hostel is a triple sharing basis, one of the finest hostel in the country, one of the finest, safest university in the country. We are ranked by QS University ranking. We have been awarded the Institute of Eminence status by Government of India. last year. For the B ARC, you should have NATA score 50% or JEE score 50%. If you already have a January JEE score, you can apply with full confidence, have an interaction with Dean and the Vice Dean. And if you are good to go, you can enroll yourself as a provisional candidate for Jindal School of Art and Architecture. The fee, academic fee for JSA is 4 lakh per year. Hostel is similar as per for other courses is 2.4 lakh. Total is 6.4 lakh per year. All right. So this is all about how what the admission process at JSA is.
Azad, if there are questions, can you read them out and then
Yes,
Zai?
Yeah. I'm just coming up. So we are open to questions. I don't see any questions on the chat board. So, Mr. Would you like to ask have some questions?
So I've got a couple of questions. So number one is that if the student is taking admission for 4 years, so is there any program for 1 year of exchange or exchange program, or the student permanent transfer, or any program of dual degree UP Jindal is offering in the interior design course?
Can I go ahead and answer that? So one of the things, Sumit, that is there about Jindal University is being an institution of eminence, we actually have a collaboration with over 250 universities all over the world. And what I'm saying is these are not just any odd regular universities. We have collaborations with Cornell, we have collaborations with Harvard. We are talking about the top universities in the world. And the idea, is that for our students, it's not a year, it's not going to be a year kind of a thing, but a semester kind of an exchange, right? So the idea is not to send them out for a year, but more like a semester, which is there. So we're in talks with places in London, and all of them, and specifically, so like Zai is from University of Cincinnati, Cornell, which is my alma mater. All of these places we are already in conversation with for sending our students there, right? Right, but it's a semester, not a year. And you asked about you asked about dual degrees. I don't know what you mean by a dual degree. The thing is this, that the B Design program and all our degree programs are actually they're accredited programs. Do you see what I'm saying? Right. So unlike many other places in India, which actually have to get their degree from somewhere else, we, being institution of eminence and a state university, give our own degrees, right? So we don't actually have to go ahead and give a degree from anywhere else. The degree that you get is from Jindal. You have a semester exchange, and there's also something else I would like to add. The academic calendar of Jindal is very interesting. What we do is we have 2 months semester, 2 months of break, 4 months of semester, 2 months of break. That's the year, right? So what happens is, in the 2 months, we encourage a lot of people to actually go ahead and do their internships, or even do short visiting abroad, right? So there are these long, but there are these short visiting things, like for a 10-day course that you can go, right? So there's those things too also as part of it. Right? I hope that answers your question.
So there is one more question, is that is there any kind of scholarship or extra meritorious student who have got like 94-95% in the class 12?
All right.
And
so all right. Let me talk a bit about our admissions process. Azad gave the logistics of it, but let me give the more details of it, right? How it works is something like this. It's very much like, as you would have noticed from our faculty, a lot of us are actually trained in North America, right? So our process is somewhat like that. So you do give in your scores and all of that, but the real deciding factors are your portfolio review, especially students, right? And what that means is that you have an interview with a panel of faculty members, right? And it is only after the entire cohort is decided do we take scholarship decisions? Because our scholarships are what are called competitive scholarships, right? That's given to you for a year, and then you are expected to maintain a particular academic standard, right? So it's completely the North American system, right? So of course there are scholarships. And the basis of the scholarship, it's after we have decided the entire course. So let's say we are taking 20 students, right? After we have taken the admission for all 20 students, the Jindal scholarships are what is called a merit and means scholarship, right? So what we do is we then look at your merit ranking in our cohorts that we have selected, and we map it across your means, right? And then we rank you, and then announce the scholarship, right?
Okay, so one more question is that what kind of portfolio you consider a good portfolio? What should be the content of the portfolio you are expecting? Like they want to, I mean, you want to see good sketches or something related with interiors, or the accumulation of everything, what they have done since class 8, 9?
Well, quite honestly, I mean, it must have come through from Zai's presentation, would have been that the course is not a standard course. The course is a very unique course. So one of the things we actually look for, unlike other schools, is simply your ability to sketch. Please understand this, that sketching is a skill. What we are interested to look, whether it's through your portfolio, all the documents and everything that you submit to us are three things. Your curiosity. How curious are you as a person? Number one. Number two, how are you thinking outside the box? So your portfolio does not have to be sketches. You know, we've had students come in, for sure, it's just things that they've broken down and investigated. You see what I'm saying? We want to know how your mind is thinking, right? So how much are you thinking outside the box, right? So that's the second thing that we look at, right? The third thing we look at is your holistic development as a person, right? Are you somebody who's only interested in one thing? Are you somebody who is who likes structure more than doing your own investigation? We prefer people who are like, let us show us the way, and we'll find our own way, right? So if that is what we are looking for, right? That's what we are looking for in your application process. That's what we are looking for in your portfolio. That's what we're looking for in an interview, right? Kind of somebody who is actually saying, I am not some. If you look, this is not to bash anyone else. If you are a person who is looking at something that is very stringent, very limited, then you'll probably not find our course so interesting. If you are somebody who are like, I want to do my own thing, I want to figure out everything, right? And I want to, I'm somebody who has a plan A. I'm the person who they come to for plan B and plan C, because I'm always thinking outside the box. That's the kind of student that we are looking for. That's the kind of portfolio that we are looking for.
I've got a couple of more
I was
questions.
going to add one more thing to that.
Sure, please.
Sorry. What Joydeep said. So all of those three, yes, and you will see that those also map on to our school philosophy. The fourth thing that we're very interested in is, are you somebody who likes to tinker with things? You like to work with your hands. It needn't be, you don't have to have gone and made a full almirah, but maybe you cut your own hair. You figured out, like, I'm going to do something, right? And those are the kind of candidates that we find interesting because they're willing to take risks. They're willing to engage with the world around them without letting be a sponge for the world.
I think the key word, Zai, is somebody willing to take risks, right? Somebody who's willing to go out on a limb. That's very, very important, right?
So one last one that I've got a couple of questions is that whether you are looking for a creative student or an artistic student. To be a good interior designer, you have to be more creative or more artistic. Your drawing should be beautiful, or your mind should be more creative, because they're not with strokes. So they want to know that it will be a more of handwork there or more of a computer-based work there.
All right. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Remember my first slide? We do not work in opposites in our school. It's not an either or, it's a both and. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The world is never made by people who think in either or. The world is always made by people who think in both and, right? That's my final answer on that. And we want you to realize that, I mean, let me give you an example. The most revolutionary ideas in the world have been made by people who you cannot box in any category. So who was Einstein? Was he a philosopher or a scientist? Right?
He was.
Who was somebody like Karl Marx? A philosopher, an economist, a sociologist, a historian? You see what I'm saying? We can never ever box people. So what we are looking for are people who constantly think both and, never either or.
You have
So
answered.
creative and artistic, right?
These all are the question. I think it's quite clear now about
Yeah.
what the college has to offer and what student can gain. So I think it's a quite helpful presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, there are some
Thank
other
you.
questions. Do we not answer those?
Definitely.
I see
Other,
a diploma or a degree course. Is that in others questions? Okay. Yeah, Azad, are you answering those already? I can't hear you.
I can't see any questions.
I see some questions in the chat. If somebody wanted, I mean, there's one very long question. Let me just quickly answer both of them. Let me just quickly answer them. So the person who has asked how you all estimated people of JSA thinks COVID-19 pandemic is going to change the spaces. To whoever has asked this question, I wish I actually gave a talk the other day on exactly how this is going to change. And the title of the talk was how can our built environment really prevent pandemics, right? And to give you a short answer on that, listen, the problem with things, especially in the kind of situation they are in our country, is that what lacks immensely in our country is the idea of what's called systemic thinking. In India, especially more than most parts of the world, the left hand does never know what the right hand is doing, right? And one of the ways we are handling the JSA is precisely by trying to make you realize that as a student, you cannot only think in one particular disciplinary direction. You've got to understand how knowledge systems interact, right? And what is going to change is this way of looking at the world, in which you think that, oh, I'm going to do engineering or I'm going to do design and I'm not going to do anything else. That's not going to work anymore. The world is going to change completely. You can add to that, Zaid.
I'd also like to add something to that. I think Joydeep makes a fantastic point. The world is going to change with COVID. You're clearly seeing all these strict divisions between what was understood as your home, what was understood as your school, what was understood as your learning space, your working space. In the last 2 months, those have collapsed. That collapse has led to incredible amounts of mental stress in people, which we are not talking about as much as we should. But this is not the first time this has happened. Forget just epidemics. The way our built environment has been designed has always been. So if some of you are from Delhi, then you're very familiar with the idea that there is old Delhi and then there is a new Delhi. Right? Between the old Delhi and the new Delhi coming up, there was something called civil lines which still exists. One of the ideology guiding civil lines and its design was the fact that you understood old Delhi as diseased, as being dirty, right? And this was a kind of understanding of, okay, there was actually a disease and communicable diseases act or something that was enacted, which said that, okay, here are sectors, you could catch something, don't go in there, right? And these were all forms that were thinking, there were knowledge systems that were intersecting, not all of them necessarily correct. They were very problematic knowledge systems too, because we are talking about a colonial system. So we have to start understanding, that's what we mean when we teach a JSA. We're not just saying, hey, somebody, it's not merely an interior styling program. If you come looking for being able to just say, hey, I want to understand what kind of curtains are out there, we'll say, yeah, that's fantastic. That's one of the things you need to know. You also need to know how curtains came to be and what curtains mean to different people, right? So it's a lot of ideas that come together if you want to be a successful practitioner or a researcher or whatever you want to be. There's so many options after.
Right. Thank you. There was one more question I think Azad answered that. I'll just go ahead and answer it. So the program is actually an accredited Bachelor's of Design degree program, not a diploma program. Right? It's a bachelor's, so it's a 4-year Bachelor of Design program. And it is accredited not only by the Haryana state government, but simply because now we are an institution of eminence, so we are, directly under the new higher education board that is getting created, right? So we are one of the very, perhaps we're the only private university now which is an institution of eminence, right? So these are all degree programs, right? Azad, your voice is not coming.
Yeah, so I'm saying we don't have any further questions for now. I think we did very good communicating about exactly the messages very well. Those who are in touch on the, yeah, Sumit sir, you're saying something.
So can we have the presentation ma'am has presented so that the students who have not attended can see the presentation? And
so what I'll do, this webinar is recorded already. So this webinar, the link of recording will be mailed to everybody tomorrow same time.
Azad, you can also share the presentation. That's not a problem. We can turn it into a PowerPoint and send it. And Sumit, you can share it. That's not a problem too. Not at all.
Thank you.
Right?
All right.
We can absolutely. Right.
So, is there any more questions?
No, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sai. Thank you so much, Jaideep. Sumit sir, let us know in case any student or the parent would like to connect with Zai or Dr. Chatterjee. We are open to take the call. All through will be routed through me. Okay.
Yes. Feel free to go to the website. Go and look at the faculty profile and just click on their photograph. You'll get their email. Feel free to write to any of us. Realize how accessible we all are. We'll just reply back to you immediately. Right? And do go and follow the Instagram page that Zai mentioned. You will actually get a lot of information, not only about the work, but really about the life that the students have at the college and in the university, right? So that's very important for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everybody. Good night.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Is it only the, okay. Bye, Azad. See you. Azad.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Are we still
Yeah.
recording? Are we still recording?
Hold on. You leave the webinar first.
Okay.
Go to options, go to file, exit webinar.